Headline news most affecting Chilliwack this week. Desmond Devnich has been charged with 2 counts of fraud and 2 counts of breach of trust. A Chilliwack woman was found eligible for medical assistance in dying. Last Friday, 5 corners became climate corners, joining international protests on climate change. And there's no debating it, it is election season. Thanks for watching. We're committed to providing local news and news that impacts our local audience in Chilliwack and Hope, and including areas such as Rosedale, Greendale, Promontory, Garrison Crossing, Fairfield Island, Little Mountain, Chilliwack Mountain, Cultus Lake, and of course, Yarrow. In addition to news, sports, and weather, we're thrilled to welcome Bert Paquette to our show as our guest anchor. We're also welcoming back the former Attorney General and MLA for Chilliwack Hope, Barry Penner, to the show, who will be continuing his federal election series with an interview with the People's Party of Canada candidate for Chilliwack Hope, Rob Bogunovic. Also, school trustee Willow Reichelt will be interviewed by Berris Karden on her innovative More Chill, Less Wack t-shirt campaign. It's a busy show this week. All right, Chilliwack, let's get started. The first of many local federal election campaign debates was this past Tuesday. Chilliwack Healthier Community organized the debate with 5 candidates at Chilliwack Secondary School. Let's take a look.
I wanted to thank all the candidates for coming forward. As you know, it's a big thing to put your name forward, and so we really appreciate them providing choice to all communities in Chilliwack in the next upcoming federal election.
This actually will probably save the country significant amounts of money, $20 billion quite possibly, in savings due to the realities of the economics. Right now, our system is failing. 40% of the shelter space in Toronto is being occupied by newcomers who have not found that Canada has worked very well for them. That's a massive increase from what it was a few years ago.
Provincially, the NDP worked to create the new childcare spaces fund. And that's something that they followed through on. They've been working through communities all over BC to make sure that we have adequate childcare. And that's something that the federal government will expand upon and support. It's something that we've seen practiced. We know they follow through.
I will work tirelessly to ensure that we are moving forward and continuing to reach these goals. The goals that we have set for a 20% reduction in poverty by 2020 and a 50% reduction by 2030. Is it enough? No. Is it a start? Yes.
An essential duty of the social contract between government and citizens is to make sure people can live fulfilling and dignified lives. Green Party pledges such as a guaranteed livable income, pharmacare, public transportation, home retrofits, and affordable housing all contribute to seniors' quality of life.
We need to set public health targets by public health professionals. Quite frankly, this shouldn't be an issue that's politicized. We should be trying to find a way to ensure that if we don't want people vaping, that should be the public health goal, and we should work backwards from there, like we did so successfully with cigarettes over multiple decades.
Please do vote on October 21st.
The BC Prosecution Service announced that a special prosecutor has approved charges involving allegations of theft of money from the constituency office of Chilliwack MLA John Martin. This was a span of 4 years between 2013 to 2017. Desmond Michael Devnich has now been charged with 2 counts of fraud over $5,000 and 2 counts of breach of trust by a public officer. Devnich is due in court October 8. MLA Martin has declined comment as this matter is now before the court.
A Chilliwack woman, Julia Lamb, who has a degenerative chronic illness, was found eligible for medical assistance in dying. Her argument was led by the British Columbia Civil Liberties Association. You might recall back in 1991, Victoria's Sue Rodriguez was diagnosed with ALS and given 2 to 5 years to live. She ultimately made the decision to end her life and sought assistance of a doctor to do that. After legal battles, she did end her life in 1994. Now, in Lamb's case, she fears her disease will condemn her to years of unbearable suffering, unable to use her hands, eat without a feeding tube, or breathe without a ventilator. Now, she argues that unlike Rodriguez, whose fate was imminent, Lamb's condition could drag on for years, and that was something she simply did not want to endure.
BC Housing is proposing to apply to the City of Chilliwack for a 3-year extension of the temporary use permit for the old Lions Hall to continue as a shelter. The shelter is under the direction of Ruth and Naomi's. This would continue to be a temporary shelter while the permanent facility continues for Ruth and Naomi's on Princess. The shelter was first opened in December 2018 on Yale and Williams and has drawn controversy due to its location close to schools. A drop-in public meeting is set for Ruth and Naomi's main facility center building on Princess on Thursday, October 3 from 5:30 to 7:30 in the evening.
Last Friday, under the clock at Chilliwack's Five Corners, young and old gathered to express their concern about the climate crisis. This was part of the global climate strike led by Greta Thunberg. She's that young Swedish 16-year-old global activist who has captivated the world, and she has made a favorable impression on many, such as Barack Obama, and a few critics, like President Donald Trump. She was instrumental in starting the movement for Fridays for Future school strikes. Young people were asked to wear red, orange, and yellow as a symbol of rising temperatures. And similar rallies were held at Abbotsford City Hall and the lawn of the provincial legislature in Victoria.
Chilliwack Central Elementary School turns 90, and there's a 2-day celebration happening this Friday and Saturday. Walkabout tours will be organized by Heritage Chilliwack. On Friday the 27th, grads and the public are invited to a drop-in pub night at the Triple Play Pub at Five Corners. The main events are on Saturday the 28th from 11 to 4, with the main program starting at 1 p.m. There is a Facebook page with more information. Search for Central Turns 90, organized by local historian Clara Hooper.
The best thing about Hofstede's is their endless supply of muffins and cinnamon buns.
The boards of directors for the Prospera Credit Union and the Westminster Savings Credit Union announced that BC's Financial Institutions Commission has provided a proposed merger of the two long-standing credit unions. This still has to be ratified by all members. There's still no word if this merger had anything to do with Prospera walking away from the naming rights to Chilliwack's Prospera Center. Those naming rights ended this year after 15 years of branding. The building is now known as the Chilliwack Coliseum.
And a reminder now that we are into fall, commercial truckers will now face higher fines for not carrying chains when required, as well as not installing them during mandatory chain-ups on BC highways. The old base level fine of $121 is now $196 for not carrying chains when and where required, and $598 for not installing chains during mandatory chain-ups. Those fines will go into effect October 1st.
The More Chill, Less Wack campaign is a t-shirt campaign that's been spearheaded by Chilliwack school trustee Willow Reichelt, and she'll be on the show later on. And it's really taken off, having raised close to $1,000 with all proceeds going to charity. Willow's on the show a bit later, but we will have full details. And now Bert with chillTV Sports.
The Chilliwack Chiefs are reeling after the loss of a longtime front office figure. JB, Jacob Besterboer, passed away following an extended battle with cancer. He was a passionate fan of the team and served the organization in many roles, including broadcaster, scout, statistician, media relations, and billet. He will be missed. The University of the Fraser Valley Athletic Department is accepting nominations for its 2020 Cascades Hall of Fame class. The hall was established in 2016 and now honors 14 inductees, including 6 builders, 5 athletes, and 3 teams. The 4th annual induction ceremony is scheduled for January 18, 2020, in conjunction with home basketball games against the Trinity Western Spartans. Nominations will be accepted until October 15. The Agassiz Speedway Annual Awards Banquet is on Saturday, November 2nd. The cost $40 per person, but after October 25th, that will rise to $50. The Hawaiian-themed program features a silent auction, best loud shirt or dress contest, and a limbo contest. Tickets are pre-sale only and available through the Speedway website. The Valley Huskers were embarrassed in Kelowna, with the Sun thrashing the Huskers 40-0. They take their 1-6 record to Exhibition Stadium on Saturday against Kamloops. And when we return, Barry Penner, in an interview with Rob Bogunovic, People's Party of Canada's candidate in the federal riding of Chilliwack Hope.
Welcome to chillTV News of the Week. I'm here with Rob Bogunovic, who's running for the People's Party of Canada. Rob, this is your first foray into elected politics, as I understand it, but perhaps not the first time that you've garnered some publicity. I recall you being in the news a bit last year over your opposition to having to be a member of the BC Teachers Federation in order to be able to teach in the public school system here in Chilliwack. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, the controversy wasn't so much that I have an opposition to trade unionism in general. It's actually how these unions, especially the public unions, are using their monopoly to basically force teachers to support an agenda, irregardless of their religious or their political concerns. And what I saw with what was going on in the union at the time was we had a trustee named Barry Neufeld, and he put forth a Facebook post challenging a new curriculum, SOGI 123, which was being rolled out across the province, often without any real public consultation. Barry tried to bring some understanding and awareness to some of the things that he had concerns about. He used some interesting language, some satire, and basically what happened was the union and a lot of other people in the community took exception to his bringing up the issue. I then looked deeply into SOGI 123, studied it, read through the entire ARC Foundation, and then I contacted the union with my concerns. I found the union was unreceptive. They didn't answer any of the questions I raised. They didn't address any of the concerns. They gave very short responses to what I raised as challenges. And then they continued on with what were demonstrable lies about what SOGI 123 was. They consistently said that it was an anti-bullying curriculum. But if you read through the ARC Foundation, you discover that SOGI 1, the 1 stands for a set of policies. And that's what a lot of the individuals were actually responding to, was what was in those policies, not what was in curriculum. We've had anti-bullying curriculum in the school system for decades without any controversy. The policies, which were brought in without much public consultation at all, that's what he was responding to. Now, that's fine if individuals have a public, spat over what's in a policy, what's happening within education. I expect that. What surprised me was when the union went and basically said, we're going to hit them with a Human Rights Commission, which is a slap suit. We're going to attack Barry Neufeld and try to silence him from expressing his opinion. And to me, that was when I just said, okay, I need to act in defense of my faith and in defense of my political opinions. They were going against their own principles. And I'm going to read this from the BCTF Members Guide because people need to understand what the BCTF was doing. In the Members Guide, it says, section 3446, that the BCTF affirms that freedom of speech is a foundation of democracy, and that we recognize that satire is an important element of free speech, and that the BCTF opposes the use of slap suits, as they are a tactic used by the powerful to silence public debate and discussion. And yet that's exactly what the union did. They used a slap suit to silence discussion on an issue. And as far as I'm concerned, that was a step too far. Then again, with all the lies that they were promoting, I just said, okay, I need to take a stance. So what I asked was if they would grant me a Section 17 exemption for religious grounds so that my union dues would be redirected to Cyrus Center, a charity that I support. It helps at-risk youth, and that's a cause I really care about. And they dismissed it immediately out of hand without even giving me an a chance to explain why I was asking for it. So I had to go forward with the LRB. And the LRB ruled that even though they saw that I was advancing religious arguments, the fact that I also had a political objection made it a political objection. So the presence of a political aspect to the objection means it's no longer a religious objection. I find that to be strange logic. But that's where we are.
Well, speaking of politics, we'll move back to federal politics. What is the key part of the People Party of Canada's platform in terms of this community, in your view?
Yeah. The People's Party of Canada stands for freedom, and there's two different strands by which this plays out in our policies. The first, and what a lot of people really do care about, is the idea that the government, the federal government, is taking way too much of our money. There's so many different taxes, and it's basically the principle of Adam Smith is that governments should not do more than is necessary. People make better decisions with their own money than governments that are very far distant from them. And so I'm a John Locke, Adam Smith libertarian. Right? I basically believe in classical liberalism, which today is mostly referred to as conservatism. And so the People's Party believes in shrinking the size of the federal government, transferring tax points to the provinces, and so that the municipalities and the provincial governments have more control over healthcare, over education, over housing, over the things that really impact the communities in which we live. Let's keep the money as close to the communities because that's where the impacts are being felt. If we're dealing with something in BC, we shouldn't have to convince members of parliament in Quebec that we have a problem and that they should respond to it. So we want to basically shrink down the federal government, get it doing what the Constitution says it should be doing. That's one strand. And then, of course, we want to go after other things that will put more money into the pockets of Canadians.
Speaking of more money, one of your major planks in your platform, as I understand it, has to do with marketing boards.
Sure.
And I think your commitment is to phase out marketing boards and the quota system, which help to keep the price of eggs, milk, and some other agricultural commodities higher than they otherwise might be due to market forces. How is that going over in Chilliwack, where we have traditionally been an agricultural community, as well as Agassiz and some other areas?
Well, I do see an awful lot of very large Mark Strahl signs on the corners of dairy farmers and their property, which is understandable. I mean, in politics, it's always politics is the collective act of voting for your own self-interest. And there's no question that dairy farmers have benefited off of a quota system. But the reality was almost all other sectors in Canada are actually being hurt to varying degrees because of our quota system. It also is a question of whether or not this is a fair system for the Canadian consumer. As you acknowledge, it does artificially increase the price paid by milk, dairy, poultry. All of these things hit the consumer, and actually it's been calculated about $100 per person per year. That's the indirect subsidy that comes from this, and that hurts the poorest members of our society the most. So I'm always asked, do I want to side with the small number of these dairy producers, which once was 135,000, is now down to 10,000. The amalgamation, across Canada. The amalgamation that's being driven by this is faster than any other sector in agriculture. Do I want to side with 10,000 producers or 36 million Canadians? And to me, even if I'm in a rural, agricultural community, I have a hard time siding with the very small number of producers, however much political power and clout they have, over these 36 million Canadians.
Would you say that's the main point of difference between you and the Conservative Party and Mark Strahl?
I don't think it's the main point of difference. Supply management isn't the thing that got me supporting Max Bernier. When Max Bernier broke away from the party, he basically called out the Conservatives for being morally corrupt and intellectually bankrupt. Now, at the time, I had been watching Andrew
That was right after he lost the leadership.
That was a year after he lost the leadership. Yeah, it is true. But the leadership itself, and as I studied this more, there's all kinds of things in that leadership that reeks of corruption. Now, so I wasn't looking at that at the time. What I was looking at was the intellectual bankruptcy of this party. I was watching Andrew Scheer run away from fights that traditionally conservatives would stand and defend. And I was just disheartened because I understand how political correctness works. It tries to put people into a box and say you cannot discuss things outside this box. By Andrew Scheer playing the game of political correctness, he's trapped in a box that pushes them more and more and more away from the ability to articulate and defend true conservative values. And the only answer to political correctness is to step out of that box. And then, once you stepped out, people will call you names, but now you can have a conversation. So I saw the intellectual bankruptcy of the Conservative Party because they were no longer conservative. They had essentially tried to move into the center where they'd be less offensive. And also, there was a political game to be played because the Liberals abandoned the center. The Liberals follow their leader, and Justin Trudeau has led them away from liberal values. He's basically an illiberal government. He is, as near as I can tell, advocating things like social justice, political correctness, which you can pretty much put an overriding shell of cultural Marxism. That's where he's led his party. And they are opposed to so many other fundamental freedoms that we have depended upon in this country, freedoms that his dad helped to enshrine into our charter.
Thinking of the national campaign, what do you think realistically is the most positive outcome for the People's Party in this election?
Yeah, being optimistic, I see a chance and an avenue for us to actually win. Now, a lot of things have to happen, a perfect alignment. But what we see right now on the national stage, something like over 60% of Liberals are not happy with the direction the Liberal Party has taken. They do not see the Liberals truly representing their values. And so those are disgruntled. But many of them are saying, well, we have to vote Liberal because otherwise Andrew Scheer will win. About half of the Conservatives are already very disgruntled with the direction the Conservative Party is taking, but about half of them are saying that, well, we have to vote Conservative because otherwise Trudeau will win. Now, if both of them recognize a third option, if both of them hear what the PPC is basically presenting and they resonate with it, as many of them have, we could see a collapse of both those traditional parties. And it's happened in Britain. It's happened in Europe. We've already seen that the old parties have basically been in rapid decline because new parties that are actually listening to the concerns of people, they're gaining momentum. So if we see those collapses, and it's quite possible, we've seen it before. We've seen it in 1993 with the Conservatives, we saw it with Stéphane Dion and Ignatieff with the Liberals. If those votes collapse, they got to collapse somewhere. In Quebec, I think the vote could easily collapse from the Liberals to the PPC, and in the English Canada, I think we can do very well.
Well, I guess we'll find out in a few weeks. I want to thank you for joining us here today, and look forward to our interview next week. Tune in to chillTV for our ongoing election coverage.
Wow, Barry, thanks very much. You didn't leave us a lot of time, but so we're going to have to talk really fast, Willow.
All right.
This is Willow Reichelt, school trustee for Chilliwack, and it's our pleasure to have you on the show. First time that you've been on the show.
Thank you.
And I know there's lots of stuff that we could talk about, a lot of interesting political things happening, but we want to spend our time today talking about a new campaign that you have. And I noticed you're wearing a very neat shirt.
Yeah, so this is my shirt. It says more chill, less whack. This stripe here is actually green, but we've got green screen behind us, so it's faded out. But it is
good,
rainbow
though.
colors
It's
normally.
kind of a bronzy look, actually.
Yes.
It looks good.
So I created this shirt for myself to wear to Chilliwack's first Pride event, which happened in August. So I wanted something to wear, and so I really like this phrase because it's a play on words for our town, obviously, Chilliwack. And because there's been a lot of things in the media about people saying quite homophobic and transphobic things,
right.
I would like to encourage the residents of Chilliwack to be more chill, less whack when it comes to LGBTQ
You should consider
issues.
selling that.
Yeah, well.
You should, because I think that's a good idea.
Funnily enough, so I made it for sale. I have a Redbubble shop that I started a long time ago and haven't really done anything with, but I wanted to get this printed, so I uploaded my design to Redbubble. And then once I made it, my husband said, well, can I buy one? Will that be weird if we both are twins or whatever? And I said, oh, that's fine with me. And then I thought, well, if he likes it, probably some of my friends will like it as well. So I advertised it to my friends, thinking maybe half a dozen people would buy one. And then because I'm a trustee and I wanted to be able to share it on my trustee page as well, I didn't want to be doing any kind of profiting off it. And also just, I think there's something weird about straight people profiting off of Pride in general.
Right, okay.
So I am donating all of artists commissioned from Redbubble, 100% of it to the Chilliwack Youth Health Center.
Well, that's great.
So the Chilliwack Youth Health Center allows youth age, I believe it's 13 to 24 in Chilliwack, to access free, confidential medical and mental health care. And it's open 2 days a week, or actually it's maybe more than that now, once a week at the Chilliwack Senior, once a week at Strahl Health, and now there's also going to be one at Shackton Community Center as well in the middle of Vetter. And so it would be the first place to go if a child was maybe, a teen was maybe having questions about their gender or sexuality, that they could get mental health counseling from there. So I thought
that sounds wonderful. So now, if our viewers are interested in buying a shirt, are they able to do that? And where would they do that?
Yes, they are. So you go to redbubble.com. My shop is by Willowbird, BYWILLOWBIRD. And if you look up More Chill, Less Wack, do make sure that you only buy it from there, because I've actually, contrary to me thinking I'd only sell half a dozen, I've sold over 275 products with More Chill, Less Wack on them, and actually raised $875 for the Chilliwack.
Congratulations.
Thank you, for the Chilliwack Youth Health Center. But because of that, it's showing as a trend, like to people who look at Redbubble. So unfortunately, all these unscrupulous people from all over the world, like from different countries, have stolen my design and are selling it on other websites.
Capitalists.
I know. So I'm constantly like reporting them to other sites and getting them taken down, but it's sort of a losing battle.
Yeah.
So obviously no thief is donating any money to anybody except their own pocket.
So you heard it here, where to buy the shirt. Congratulations on the campaign. And I know you've got a lot of political interests, and we'd love to have you on a later time talking about some of those issues.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Nasi goreng is an Indonesian fried rice dish. It's an original recipe that has been handed down from Doutzen that we at Hofstede's have been using for 20 years. It is mildly spicy with hints of curry. Come in and enjoy it on Thursdays in our cafe as well as in our takeout section every day. Please come and enjoy.
chillTV weather. It's that time of the year when no matter what you wear, you're too cold, and then in a few hours, you're too hot. Welcome to the first week of fall. It's a mix of sun and showers for the next week, and the high near 15. We'd like to thank our very special guests this week. First off, Barry Penner and Rob Bogunovic of the People's Party of Canada for their interview surrounding the upcoming federal election. And Willow Reichelt and Berris Karden and their interview on the More Chill, Less Wack t-shirt campaign. And great having everybody on the show. And of course, Bert Paquette, who's co-anchored today. Thanks for sharing the anchor desk. Now, you may recognize the name Paquette from a couple of weeks ago. We had your wife Pam right here as a guest anchor. Were you jealous?
I wasn't jealous, but anything she can do, I can do better.
Good answer. Now, you've been with the RCMP for a number of years. You've had a lot of highlights. I guess the Olympics was probably one of the biggest highlights for you.
One of the greatest challenge, but definitely as well one of the greatest highlights. Always refer to my first 15 years in the RCMP as being a real police officer, but the last 10 as being a spokesperson for the National Police Force.
Well, we're glad that you're here. Thanks for watching chillTV's News of the Week. And remember to tune in next week to see chillTV's interview with Kelly Velonis, the Chilliwack Hope Liberal Party of Canada candidate. And planning even further in your calendar, mark us down for October the 21st for chillTV's election night coverage, and more details to come. If you would like to share the spotlight, even if you've never been on camera before, send us a note to news@chilltv.ca with your CV, and if you have it, links to your video. And if there's something in Chilliwack in the Eastern Fraser Valley you feel we should be reporting on, again, send us an email to the same address, news@chilltv.ca. That's the news this week. I'm Don Lehn.